We're going to be joined by Accountability Now Director Adv Paul Hoffman. Advocate Paul, good afternoon. Thanks for your time at the SABC at this hour.
Thank you for inviting me, and good afternoon to your viewers.
Let's look at the issues at hand. I mean, we know that the DA says it will now study the records to ascertain whether the ANC has complied with the court order in full, which directed it to, of course, hand over its complete meetings, minutes, email correspondence, including WhatsApp conversations and CVs. This all dates back to about January 2013. And the ANC had warned the DA earlier not to breach the Protection of Persons Information Act or POPI Act when it gets the records. How should the DA be navigating what it has at hand at this point?
Yes, I'm afraid the court order that directed the ANC to hand over the records does not include a reservation, and the idea behind getting the records is to enable the DA as the official opposition to get into the nitty-gritty of the effect of cadre deployment on the public administration and the administration of the state-owned enterprises. There may even be individuals who have been overlooked in their quest for a job in the public administration, who will be able to show, on the basis of the records that are now made available, that they were unfairly treated or subjected to an unfair labor practice when their application was rejected in favor of a lesser qualified cadre deployee. That is in fact what happened in the famous 2008 case of Molokoti versus the Amatola District Municipality, when a person who was not a cadre of the National Democratic Revolution, but was the best qualified applicant, found himself out in the cold because the cadre deployment committee insisted that a cadre be employed as the new municipal manager in his place. That decision was taken on review successfully, and the non-cadre was appointed by the court as the new municipal manager in the Amatola District Municipality. Now, the ANC did not take that decision on appeal, and instead adjusted its public position in relation to cadre deployment by suggesting that the cadre deployment committees simply make a recommendation which isn't binding on the legal structures that are required to make the decisions in relation to appointments. The truth or otherwise of that assertion is going to be revealed on the basis of the documentation that is now made available to the DA. Already in the post 2018 era, when Deputy President Mabuza was the chairman, it was pretty clear that recommendations weren't being made, instructions were being given by the cadre deployment committee. So a lot of interesting information.
Yeah.
Covering the period when President Ramaphosa was the chair of the National Cadre Deployment Committee at Luthuli House will be revealed once the DA has picked its way through the documentation that is made available.
Some of the view that the Concourt's decision, in fact, was a step in and a victory rather for openness and transparency at large. I wonder how you'd weigh in on that. Also, we know that Chief Justice Raymond Zondo's State Capture Commission report reflected significantly on the negative impact and even the unlawful conduct of the ANC's cadre deployment policy. And in view of what emerged on that front, just looking at what it stipulates with regards to appointments in the public service and how that must be based in competence, objectivity and fairness. As it stands, is cadre deployment a breach of the country's labor laws? Has it been the sole cause of state capture and corruption in South Africa, from your vantage point?
Yes, look, as I see it, Section 195 of the Constitution sets out in great detail how the public service and the state-owned enterprises are to be governed. The values and the principles that inform those aspects of public life in South Africa are set out in Section 195.1, and good human resource management practices are required. It is not a good human resource management practice to discard every applicant for employment simply because that applicant is not a deployable cadre of the ANC. So it is clear, and Chief Justice Zondo has actually found so, that state capture was facilitated by cadre deployment, and the Molokoti decision in the Eastern Cape has also found that the practice of cadre deployment is illegal, invalid, and unconstitutional. It seems likely that tomorrow, and we'll all learn this tomorrow, that the Gauteng High Court will take a similar line to that taken in Molokoti's case and by the Chief Justice in the report of his Commission of Inquiry into State Capture.
Let's just wrap up the conversation and look ahead, alluding to the Gauteng High Court in Pretoria, expecting to deliver its judgment in the DA constitutional challenge on the ANC's long-standing cadre deployment policy. At this point, should the court in fact rule in favor of the DA, what impact would this have? And will that ruling open up the ANC to more court challenges? If we are going to look at, positive forms of cadre deployment practices the world over, any examples or ideas of that coming to mind?
Yes, look, the way in which to employ people in South Africa is not governed by practice throughout the world. It is governed by the provisions of the Constitution.
Yes.
It is true that if a public servant is being employed into a political position, advisor to the mayor, DG to the minister, then you can take political considerations into account under the Constitution. But in general, everybody, whether cadre or not cadre, is entitled to a fair shake, to a fair labor practice in relation to an application to be employed as a public servant or as an employee of a state-owned enterprise. So what is likely to happen in the judgment due to be delivered tomorrow is that the court will have regard to the provisions of Section 195 of the Constitution, and it will strike down the practice of cadre deployment in the public administration, thus opening up the public administration to people who are not deployed cadres of the ANC to obtain work in the state. And that can only be a good thing, because a far larger pool of talent will be available than is available among those loyal to the National Democratic Revolution that is espoused by the ANC and its alliance partners.